Hello, welcome back to the Joyful Motherhood Podcast. I'm so excited. Episode 2. And so today we're going to be talking about discerning becoming a stay-at-home mom. So this episode is just listening in if you want to hear another mom's story and another mom's tips, but specifically to send to somebody or to listen in if you are in the position of transitioning from leaving a career, becoming a stay-at-home mom. And so that was my journey. And I'm going to share tips that really helped me get through that journey and that process. So you know that my background was as a nurse practitioner. So specifically, if you're in the medical field, I think you'll relate to this. But yes, and so I'm so excited to share about this because this was something. Okay, so like I shared in episode 1, my dream was always to become a mom. Always desired having a kid. I never really figured out exactly how my life was going to play out as a mom and a nurse. I never really thought about it. I love sharing about this because this was something that I really struggled with, and I always looked for the answer in other people besides looking at it between me and God. And here's I think the biggest takeaway and the biggest tip for any type of discernment. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about discernment. But here's one of the biggest tips for any type of these kind of decisions and discernment is like, number 1, this is between you and God. Like this is between you and God and your husband. And so yeah, that actually ultimately really helped me because one of my things is we're going to be talking about not comparing, but the answer is not going to look like her or her or her or her. It's not going to look like anyone but you, because this is the beauty of being irreplaceable and being irreplaceable as a human being, that you're irreplaceable as a mom. Your story, your motherhood is so different than anybody else's. Okay. So let's see. So I want to start out with a little story. So this was back when I was, we just moved into our house and I was pregnant with my second son. So this was 8 years ago. He's now 8.5 years old. So this was 8 years ago. And my best friend from college had one of her best friends over from college who just ended up moving to this area. And she said, can Deirdre come over the house too? And you guys, we actually knew each other from both being bridesmaids in her wedding. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That'd be great. So Deirdre was over, and so Kristen brought Deirdre over. So she's sitting downstairs in my living room, and I felt embarrassed that I did not have a job lined up. Because when I quit my job, oh my goodness, I need to tell you this. Okay, but when I quit my job, I was actually so stressed out at my job. And when I quit my job, literally a week later, we conceived our son, Dominic. So there was a lot going on between stress and the effects of stress on my cycle. So I would definitely having other podcast episodes about that and the effects of stress on our health and our hormones specifically as women. So I had quit my job. And then when we moved here, was pregnant. And so we were about to have Dominic. I would think I was 8 months along. And my plan was to maybe take a year off and then go back. And so I was very excited about that because I didn't really call myself a stay-at-home mom at this point. I just thought, I'm just taking a break because we moved to a new area and I'm pregnant, about to have a baby. So I didn't want to go through maternity leave at a new job. I thought I'll just take like an extended maternity leave. And like when he's about 6 months, I'll start reapplying for a job. So that was my plan. So this is on my second son. So that was my plan. And so I remember when Deirdre asked me, I was embarrassed. I said, well, I'm just taking some time right now, really trying to kind of downplay. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to look for, some hospital jobs around here and all this stuff. And she immediately just like almost cut me off immediately and was like, wow. She said, that is my dream. She said, what a privilege. I would love to stay home and raise my babies. And I just like jaw dropped. I just remember being like, wow. And I still 8 years later write that down in my journal sometimes. I remember I wrote that down in my journal, even the word privilege. My mindset around being a stay-at-home mom was just not positive in the sense that it wasn't a dream. It was like, not that it wasn't positive. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't like, this is a privilege. This is a goal. It was more of this like bundled within this feminism that I need to be doing more than raising my kids. And I am more than that because I have higher education and because I have these career ambitions. And not that those things are not true. Like I said, those things are true and you can have career ambitions and do those. But just in this in this identity of a stay-at-home mom, which actually is my dream. It actually is on my heart. It is what I wanted to do. I just wasn't thinking that. It was so much about mindset. And until I heard another mom say that, it just put everything in my perspective, because she also said, she then went on to say, I hope that that Sean is able to provide for us. I really hope that Sean is able to allow me to stay home. And the framing of this, like that he's able to provide and she's able to stay home. I wasn't even thinking that. The fact that here I was about to have my second baby and my husband was providing for me, and I was taking this for granted. And so I just really, really wanted to share that, because sometimes everybody has different journeys, and everyone has different crosses and different, struggles with how they think of things. And so this is a very unique journey for women who actually want to be a stay-at-home mom, but they feel this guilt, or they feel this pressure, or they feel, this is all of the feelings that I had, that just wasn't allowing myself to embrace that role. And so this is an episode for you to maybe take those words too, and to just realize that if you are in a position where you are able to, and you do feel that pulling is on your heart, really, really pray about that. And so that was just a story that I just wanted to kick it off with, is that if you're in that process of discerning becoming a stay-at-home mom and leaving a job and you're able to, or you feel like, you have to make it really tight financially in order for that to happen, but that's on your heart so much, you just obviously discuss it with your husband, and it's on his heart too. You can do anything together as a team, and you can make anything work as a team, but our words that we use, the language we use surrounding that is so important. It's so important. So here's my notes that I wrote about this episode. So, so that was my journey, something about doing a little bit of that. And then I wanted to share just some other tips about how it really helped me get into that. So that was after my second son. And so I actually did go back to work, which what I did at that time when Dominic was about 6 months old, I actually became a fertility care practitioner with the Creighton model. So that was amazing. And he actually came with me on the airplane to Omaha. It was the cutest thing ever. My confirmation sponsor, amazing, Paula, she lived in Omaha. So I actually got to stay with her. And this is an amazing program. If you've never heard of NAPR Technology, I want you to Google it right now. But that was an amazing an absolutely amazing experience. And so I ended up becoming, basically, you can think of it as like an NFP teacher, a fertility practitioner, fertility teacher. And so I taught for a couple years at our local parish and online a little bit, and had clients, and I just loved that. And so it was very, very part-time, maybe 10, 15 hours a week. But that was what I considered as my work at that time. And then after my son Anthony was born, so this was my third, I did that for a couple years. And then after my third, my NP license was about to expire. And with your NP license, you cannot renew it without actually having clinical hours. And I didn't want to let that last. So I thought, oh my gosh, I want to keep this. I work so hard for this. So I was scrambling to find jobs. And so I found a hospice job that I was able to get very quickly onboarded. And I wanted it to be part-time. At this point, my oldest was getting older, and I was already committed to homeschooling. He was still only in like about kindergarten. And so it was very manageable, just couple hours in the morning to homeschool him. So I was able to still work part-time, but that was stressful. It was very stressful. I was trying to fit in work hours. My milk supply went down. My son ended up having a lot of weight gain issues because I was trying so hard to breastfeed on top of putting all this pressure to get all these hours in. And it was just very stressful, but I made a connection with the director of the hospice who had his own family practice in the area. So I was able to leave the hospice job, which was just very scattered. You were driving all over, home visits. Although I will say it was so extremely pro-life. And I remember writing blog posts about thinking, oh my gosh, here I am. I still had a couple of clients on the end of NFP that I was still taking as I was tapering off. And here I am talking about the beginning of life with these fertility clients and how amazing life is and precious at the beginning of every life. And, each time we have sessions, we're talking about that, and you're literally, and then there's so many clients who are struggling with infertility and they're trying so hard to get pregnant, and you see, oh my gosh, how hard it is what a miracle every life is. And then I'm going into these hospice patients' rooms and talking about the amazing, oh my gosh, what word do I want to say? not quality. I want the quality, of course, but just the amazing gratitude for the ending of life and like the dignity, that was the word, just the dignity of the end of life. And it's so Catholic, this hospice, this whole idea of hospice, which is so different from the culture of death and euthanasia, how awful, that is, how awful. And so just thinking about like how amazing life is across the board from the beginning to the end of the life. And I thought, wow, God is really doing something with me with this message, because just showing us the beauty of life no matter what. And so I did learn so much from that job as a hospice nurse. And I will say, like, how many patients, had their miraculous medals on and just holding their rosaries at the end of life and their Bibles, and that the doctor that I had worked with was amazing. And so he was the director of a long-term care facility close to the area. And so he was able to hire me on as part-time in that facility, which was such a blessing. So I would have more stable hours. So I did that, which was so great for a couple years, and then found out I was pregnant the week that COVID happened. And at that point, it was my fourth baby, and I was in the medical field with COVID, so unclear if, what we were going to do with these mandates and vaccines and everything, of course. And so I just had this conversation with Nick, and, Nick was always so supportive of all of these different jobs, and always so supportive of me, chasing whatever dream I wanted to do, and, helping to make more money for our family or fitting things in. And I felt the weight more and more at that point of, oh my gosh, I truly just want to be home. And at that point, being pregnant getting that positive pregnancy test at number 4, I had never felt that peace. It was such a peace, and it was a desire that came from me, because I felt like every other job, and even with every other baby, I should say, I forgot to tell you what happened with the first baby, but with my first son, I was 25 when I was pregnant with him. And at that point, I was full on into career. I was in grad school part-time, which was amazing. Do not regret that at all. And I was working part-time in the ICU at Hershey Med, which was an amazing job. Shout out to my brother, who's actually doing his orthopedic surgery residency there. How incredible. And so that's amazing. And absolutely love Penn State. We are just amazing. History with Penn State in our family. So that was an amazing job, and they had an amazing program there where they reimbursed you for your higher education, like a very high discount off. So I was able to go back to school for a great price, come out with hardly any debt, and that was awesome. And my mom was very close, so she was helping me a lot with Nicholas, or with my first son. So that was just an amazing setup. And at that point I was just pumping, I just had him, and we were juggling it, and we were totally making it work. And I just had so much energy around that and the education. And it was great at that time. It was really great. So that was with my first. And then when I graduated grad school, he was about 18 months, 1.5 years old. And at that point I was really desiring to get pregnant again. I was so excited for him to have a sibling. And that's when I started having cycle issues around getting pregnant again. And I had started a job as a nurse practitioner, and I just did not realize the intensity of the job and what the effects of that was having on my cycle. And so shout out to nurse practitioners, because truly they are doing, the jobs that doctors are doing. Truly, like, we're seeing the same amount of patients, and we have how much minimal of the training. And so much of when you get into being an NP is a lot of on the job training, and you have to put in those hours. You have to put in those hours of charting and staying late. And I had been hired part-time, so I really was putting in full-time hours, really even more than full-time hours, for a part-time paid job. And it was so stressful. I didn't realize the effect of it on my cycle. And so that's when we made that decision to quit. And I realized a week later I conceived Dominic. And so I just always go back to the effects. I think my body was able to just breathe, and I ovulated finally and was able to conceive. And so I really am passionate also about figuring out the effects of stress on our hormones. We'll love to talk more about that for sure. And so, okay, so that was baby number 1 and number 2, number 3. So now fast forward to number 4. Like I said, after each one of these work experiences, I always had I always had a different discernment. And so things that would help me is, of course, number one was prayer, always constant journaling. Journaling is like my favorite form of prayer, but journaling and praying, holy hours, Eucharistic adoration, favorite, and interviewing other moms. And that was something that I learned that I had to be careful about, because sometimes I would really cling onto what I thought another mom was doing that I desired so much. Oh man, she has this incredible part-time job. That would be that would be perfect for me. Or she has this, whatever situation. And not until I realized, and how childish it is to compare anything. We should always be staying in our own lane. But when I realized was, seeking advice of Christian women that I did respect, that was really helpful, because they really, the best advice you can give, even when your friends come to you for different things, you can share your journey, but it's so peaceful. I always remember this one friend, and she would say, what is the Holy Spirit saying to you? Like, she would put the question back on me, what is God saying to you, and just really encouraging me to pray about it. And then sometimes sharing different discernment novenas, different work novenas. There was one work novena by, who started Opus Dei? The saint that started Opus Dei. Oh my gosh, I can't remember his name off the top. Saint Jose of Scrivia. Okay, he has a work novena. I think I had that bookmarked for like 5 years of my life, and it was so amazing that I would continuously do that work novena. And that was so great. So different novenas, but different discernment, but put it back. What is the Holy Spirit, putting on your heart? And then the third thing was talking with your husband. Like, so it's so funny, because sometimes, we as women, have all of our own ambitions, our own gifts, which is so amazing. But sometimes we get not sometimes, right? How often we're so in our own heads that our husbands are so different from us. And when I finally would ask my husband, he's like, I would love for you to be with the kids. That would be great. Also, everybody is different with your financial situation. When you have a situation where your husband is asking you to work, that's for, to help your family, that's totally different. That's a totally different situation. So always go into what you are, but maybe make sure you are checking in with him, because maybe he doesn't care as much, or maybe he would love for you to cut down. So it's really good to have those conversations. And so that helped me so much, because I thought, oh my gosh, I'm actually putting all of this pressure on myself. For what reason? When my husband would love for me to cut back or to be home. So that was amazing. And like I said, he always supported me. So he never said, I don't want you to work. It was just always, when I heard his opinion, it helped me so much. Okay. So that was the thing, is discussing with your husband. Okay. And then, and finding other moms. Okay. And then not comparing. So when you're transitioning, it's just not comparing, because every baby is going to bring a new dynamic to your family. Every season is going to bring a new dynamic. And then I do believe, so this goes into the next one, number 8. I do believe, back to the marriage thing, that you are a team, and that there are times when, like, in the beginning of our marriage, I was making more money as a nurse than Nick was as a graphic designer. And like, now the tables are completely turned. But at that time, we needed my job, and that helped. And then sometimes, when the different things with the economy happened, and, my job as a nurse could step in, there's so many different times within a marriage that go back and forth. And so remembering that you are a team, and there's just so many different dynamics. And so whatever dynamic is working for you, then that, you're called to be a team. So think about, almost like write down your names. So write down Alex and Nick, and write down what you each bring to the table in your roles. So this is a huge part of your discernment. And I'll have a whole separate episode about how creating your job as a stay-at-home mom, because that is very fun. And that is something that I had to learn. It was nothing that you're taught in school, right? Nothing that you're taught in school. So here you have a whole list of how to be a nurse. If you want to, go climb up the ladder of, your clinical ladder, or you want to go for your master's, you have a blueprint of it all laid out. What's the blueprint for motherhood? We don't have one. So you really can make your own, but it's so helpful. I didn't like that. That like really threw me off, not having a plan and not having structure and in my day and what I had to do. So that's why last episode I was talking about taking a shower and getting dressed. That's part of the structure. So this is really fun though, where you can create your own job as being a stay-at-home mom. But I just wanted to say then it helps to kind of write out your roles and have that discussion with your husband too. That's very important. Okay. So, getting to the end of this. So to wrap this up, if you are on that journey, discerning to becoming a stay-at-home mom, the other thing I just want you to remember, this helped me so much. And I said this last time, but remembering the word season and irreplaceable. God's never outdone in the dreams that he has for us as women, but the word of a season and the word of you being irreplaceable really helps, because in this season you are irreplaceable as a mom. In the next season there's things that you can do, but in this season, like, it is so cliche, but it is so true, they're only young once, and if you have that time with them, it truly is irreplaceable and truly is a blessing. So that really does help me. The other thing, let's wrap this up, but remember those posts that go around, especially around Mother's Day, and they say, okay, how much money would it cost to be paid as a stay-at-home mom? And they always have a sign where it's like over $200,000, because when you add up, the daycare that you're saving by, watching the kids, if you're cooking, how much would it cost to be a cook for, driving kids around and, laundry and just all the things that you do. And, you add that up. So, high five to any stay-at-home moms. I want you to know your value. Of course, it's irreplaceable, unlimited, but, the monetary value is very high in your job and your role. And so that's kind of a really fun to remember. And I'll have to try to find that post or tag that post. And then lastly, maybe two other, a realistic one and then a positive one. But, the realistic one is also not to idolize any of these roles. The hardest ages, I think, for a stay-at-home mom, 5 and under, and you see your value outwardly. You get the outward affirmation when the kids turn about 5 and up. And this is so true, because it's like kindergarten age, they're just starting to do things more so in the community, like maybe little activities, little sports teams, school things. And you see that from just other, teachers, coaches, friends. And when your kids are 5 and under and like you're just having toddlers and babies, and it is so hard. And that's when your identity is most shaken, I think. And you really, that's, I think your identity is most shaken of like, oh my gosh, what you need, that you're craving that intellectual stimulation. And so it's really easy in that stage to fall for the lie of like, I need to do something more with my life. I am just literally wasting away, just changing diapers or whatever. And first of all, that, of course, we know that is not true, because there's so much brain growth that happens from especially ages 0 to 3, but 0 to 5, but 0 to 3. Oh my gosh. I mean, the time that you're around your kids, the influence that you have, whether you know it or not. But just on a realistic note, you do need intellectual breaks, and there's nothing wrong with that. You do need mom fuel times. You do need ways of just being yourself and getting that out. And so that totally makes sense. But back to my friend so her kids are getting out there. Her oldest is older than 5. And so she sees that value, and she was just, we were just talking, like I'm complaining about things, and then she's complaining about work and saying, I really would, wish I could just be a stay-at-home mom, and kind of like idolizing the life of a stay-at-home mom. Whereas sometimes, and I remember I'm not at this point anymore at all, but when I was a new stay-at-home mom sometimes, or grappling with that identity, and then running into moms who had these jobs, and I would idolize that and say, oh my gosh, I wish I just, could clock in and put my scrubs on and have this amazing, part-time job or whatever role. And the whole lesson is to not idolize either thing, because the grass is always greener, and it's not comparing, and not to idolize this role of whichever one God is calling us to. Because specifically, like I was writing down with, becoming a stay-at-home mom, like there are going to be your own hardships, and there's going to be, of course, but there's going to be hardships that only other stay-at-home moms are going to understand in that season. And so that's when you have to kind of, find your mom groups and find play dates, find church groups, and that really helps. And, same thing with working moms. There's things that only you're going to understand, and we need each other, and it's good to have people outside of what season we're in too, because it helps call us out, and it helps bring us back to truth and reality too, and gratitude for where we are. So that's good. this is what I wanted to say with last thing, like everything is the whole idea of joyful motherhood is that part of this is that joy is a virtue too, and joy in these seasons, in this moment, is also a choice. We can choose joy even amidst the sorrow of anything, even amidst the struggle of anything. Like, this is Mary, walking in even in the sorrowful mysteries and having the joyful mysteries, but like Mary choosing always to be joyful. And so like everything, like it starts in our mind, and it starts in our mind. And so to build a culture of life, to build a culture of becoming a joyful mom and showing to others that, motherhood is amazing, and we all love our kids, and we want to be around our kids. We love our kids and we value motherhood. That starts in our mind, and we need to tell each other that and uplift each other and say, we're going to be making mistakes. Nobody's perfect, of course, but we can choose to say, oh, I actually love spending time with my kids. I actually love that, which of course we all do. But so that's what I wanted to end with, of just making this whole transition, making the transition and making the way that you view motherhood as this privilege of being a mom. And if you are discerning becoming a stay-at-home mom, viewing that time as such precious time. So I want to leave you with this. I want to leave you with this final tips of take your discernment directly to the Lord. Take it directly to Jesus. Tell him everything, every detail. Tell him this is exactly what is stressing you out. Tell him what you desire, and be like, just be so honest. Be like, Jesus, this is exactly what I desire. This is really what I want. This is who I'm talking to about it. And then, pull up a novena for discernment. If it's specifically work related, maybe pull up the novena to St. Jose of Scrivia, pull that up and make holy hours about it, dedicate the rosaries to it. And then, ask trusted friends and ask your husband like exactly what he's thinking. Have the financial marriage meetings together, as boring or hard as they are. Have those and just keep praying about it, and know that it's a season, and know that things can change, and know that you are irreplaceable. So I hope that this is helpful. I hope that this is so helpful for anybody out there who is on that same journey. And so I'm really excited. Let me know. So share this podcast with maybe a friend or somebody who also can be helped with it. I would love if you would leave a rating or review. That just helps so much. I'm just so brand new with this podcast. I'm excited to get it out and just talking about so many topics for moms, of going through all things, and just building up our culture of life, building up, this is truly on my heart. Us moms embracing motherhood, we are going to change the world. So we are going to do this. So St. Mother Teresa, pray for us. And to all the moms out there, keep choosing joy.